Good evening, folks. This video was always in the plans to do eventually as part of my Krautrock collection series. There would have been another couple of videos before it, but given the sad events of this last week, I've decided to bring it forward in the schedule. Now, if you don't know, this week, electronic music pioneer and krautrock legend Klaus Schulze passed away at the age of 74. Now, I know he'd been ill for quite a while, but it still came as a bit of a shock. I first discovered electronic music via Tangerine Dream and their Fader album, but very quickly I discovered Klaus Schulze's music, and he became a firm favourite of mine, and I've been collecting his work since the mid-late 70s to the current day. Now, before I go any further, I also want to mark the passing of another krautrock master this week, and that was Peter Fromada. Peter first started in the 70s, but came to be better known in the 80s with his band Necropolis and with his solo work. He'll be sorely missed. I've done his albums in a previous krautrock video of mine, so if you want to see those, check out that video. Anyway, Klaus Schulze started off as a guitarist, actually, in a band called Les Barons, who were a sort of beat group in Berlin, I think. But in 1967 he formed a band called Psy Free, Psy Free, who were a trio, produced sort of free psychedelic type of music. In that band he played drums. In 1968 he was recruited into an early lineup of Tangerine Dream by a Gefreuse. I think Steve Jolliffe was in the band at that point, a name we'll hear again later. He appeared on Tangerine Dream's very first album, Electronic Meditation, obviously with Edgar Froese and with Konrad Schnitzler. But after that he left to form the superb Ashra Temple, again playing drums. I think he only did the one album with Ashra, and then decided to concentrate on his solo career and on electronic music. Now he's a very prolific artist, and as I've been collecting his music for going on 35-40 years, there's a lot to show. So this video might actually get split into 2 or more parts, but I'm not going to try and say a lot about each album. I just got to show you what I've got. And as this is a special, I'm going to also show CDs as well as vinyl, because Klaus's releases in the 90s and 2000s, a lot of those have never been released on vinyl, they were purely CD. So let's get on. So 1972 was when Klaus released his first album on the Or label. By the way, I'll be referring to all my notes for dates and stuff. Sorry about that. This is his first album, Irrlicht, released, as I said, in 1972. And this is early organ drone experiments utilising orchestral recordings that he made of an orchestra. Very sort of in that early minimalist style, a la Terry Riley, Lamont Young. I think it's superb. The covers, by the way, is by an artist called Uz Aman, who did a number of covers early on for Klaus. So that's his first album from 1972. In 1973, he produced his second album, a double album called Cyborg. Again, this is further organ drone music, 4 long tracks occupying each side of the vinyl. But this time he's extended his palette to include a little bit of VCS3 synth. But again, very much in the style of the first album. In 1974, he produced Black Dance. This one was produced for Brain label in Germany and was on Virgin over here in the UK. This includes him playing more synthesizer this time, and also features the vocals of Ernst Walter Simon. So that's his 1974 album Black Dance, and I think a treasure in his catalogue for me anyway. Then 1975, and again originally on Brain. I should have said the first 2 albums, Irrlicht and Cyborg, my copies are 2017 reissues, and my copy of Black Dance is a 1984 UK pressing. Anyway, back to 1975 and Picture Music. Again, 2 side-long tracks, Totem and Mental Door. Though this was released in 75, the thinking is this was actually recorded back in 73 and held up for legal reasons, because stylistically it seems to follow on more to the first couple of albums than to Black Dance. This sort of predicts Brian Eno's experimentation in ambient music, sort of half a decade later. Excellent stuff. Also 75 is one of his masterpieces, again on Brain and Virgin, and this is Time Wind, with the LP dedicated to Richard Wagner. Superb artwork again. Again, a compulsory listen for anybody interested in electronic music. Again, some feeling that this might be being released out of order, and that it should have been post the next album proper, which was Mirage. But absolute classic. In 1975, he did some recordings in a home session on 26th of September with the guitarist Gunter Schickert. And these sessions were released on this album on the Miramur label in 2013. Gunter Schickert was his roadie at one point. Went on to produce some great Krautrock albums of his own, where he plays echo guitar. Worth checking out for his own stuff. But this is a really good album. Next up, one that's considered probably one of the greatest examples of electronic music ever, and that is the album Moon Dawn, with just again 2 long tracks, Floating and Mind Phaser. This featured, apart from Klaus playing his big moog, Harold Groskopf on drums. And if you can see here, you see a guitarist, I think, a shadowy figure in the corner of the studio. That's Gunter Schickert. Right, 1977 we move on to, and probably what a lot of fans consider their favourite album, and this is Mirage. This is sort of more low-key and atmospheric, even eerie in places, and was promoted by a concert at the London Planetarium. Again on Brainen Island, and this is a 1977 UK original copy. So we move on to 1978. Oh, sorry, we're still with 1977, and he was asked to do the soundtrack of a movie by Lasse Brown. Now, this movie happened to be a porno movie, but Lasse Brown had heard Mirage and liked the music and wanted Klaus to do music in a similar vein, similar style and tempo, and this is what Klaus came up with, and it is actually brilliant. This was originally on the Metronome label. My copy is a Dutch Ariola release from '77. He was so pleased with Body Love and the response to it that he got together with Harold Groskopf on drums again and produced an album, Body Love 2. Now, this has no connection to the film, though the track Star Dancer 2 is actually a remix of the original track on Body Love 1. It's great stuff again. Now, between 76 and 77, Klaus joined Stomo Yamashita's Go project, which produced, I think, 2 studio albums and a live album. I'm not going to show those here. I'll stick to just the Klaus solo work. Also in '78 comes one of my personal favourites, and this is the album, what some call 10, but I think Klaus Schulze always called it X. This is a masterpiece. It features a symphony orchestra and is subtitled 6 musical biographies. It's more experimental and avant-garde in places than what came before. Comes with a nice booklet inside with the score and great pictures from various points in his career. Each track is named after a famous historical figure: Friedrich Nietzsche, George Trakl, Frank Herbert, the Dune author, Friedemann Bach, Ludwig II van Beyen, and Heinrich von Kleist. like I said, this could very well be my favourite Klaus album. And speaking of June, we move on to 1979. He was a big fan of the novel, and he produced this album called June. Sorry, the cover's a bit shiny. This features Arthur Brown of Fire fame singing on Shadows of Ignorance, which is a fairly rhythmic track. The first side, June itself, is a more experimental ambient piece with some really nice cello played by Wolfgang Thibault, a name again that we'll see more of in the future. He went on to play quite a bit with Klaus. That's 79. He then started a project under the name of Richard Van Fried. This was a series of collaborative albums he did with other musicians. I think there were 7 in total. Most of them were fairly distinctive from his solo work, but there were 1 or 2 that weren't particularly any different. And this was the first, with a superb cover on the IC label. IC was his own company, which stood for Innovative Communication. And this is, as I said, the album Time Actor. This again features Arthur Brown on vocals, Harmony Brown on vocals, Vincent Crane of Crazy World of Arthur Brown and Atomic Rooster fame on keyboards, Klaus on electronics, Mike Shreve of Santana fame on rhythmical advice, and again Wolfgang Thibault on cello. This is some excellent material. In some places fairly reminiscent of what Arthur Brown was doing on his third Kingdom Come album, Journey. In 1980 he produced his very first live album, a double, just called Live. Brilliant shots, love those. Again, just four side long tracks. Each one, well, the first one's 22 minutes. Each of the others exceeds 30 minutes. Recorded during concerts in Amsterdam, Berlin and Paris. Harold Grosskopf plays drums on side 2 and Arthur Brown appears on vocals on side 4. Brilliant stuff. Again, this was on Brain, and this is, like my June one, is a German original copy.